All right. So I think from the looks of it, we should probably get started. And if anyone joins in either from the live stream or into this call to interact directly, they can, I guess, join quietly and follow along. So just get set up. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the PTC Plus University panel. And before we get started, we just wanted to run through a couple of things. So first things first, this panel will be recorded. So if you're uncomfortable with having your camera on or speaking out with your mic, you can always use the chat to communicate. If there's anything that's urgent, you can feel free to direct message me as well, as I'll be moderating today's panel. And if it's really urgent, you can use the Zoom raise hand function to get our attention as well. So without further ado, let us begin by introducing our two wonderful panelists today. So firstly, we have Jenna, a second-year CS student at U Waterloo, and she has some great experiences to share with us today, as she is currently working part-time at the CRA and will be working at TD in the winter. We also have Noor here from second year of Eng Sci at U of T, and she also has some great experiences to share with us as she is planning on specializing in robotics with a certificate of communication. So please join me in welcoming with a virtual round of applause our two wonderful panelists today. Perfect, thank you. Now to follow suit, we'll just get started right away with some general questions just to get to better know our panelists. So first things first, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a bit about maybe your program and such.
Do you want to go first? You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Jenna, and I'm second year CS at U Waterloo. So computer science is basically like coding, more software type of thing. And I'm in the co-op program. So I just finished a co-op during the summer with CRA, and currently I'm working part-time with them. And then next term is also a co-op term for me, where I'll be working at TD as a software engineer. Other than that, in terms of like hobbies, I like to play volleyball. So I'm currently playing intramurals right now at Waterloo. And I also like making short films sometimes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Noor. I'm a second year student. I'm in Eng Sci, engineering science at U of T. And I'm planning on specializing in the robotics option with a certificate in communication. So Eng Sci is basically kind of a mixture of both hardware and software, almost. You do a lot of theoretical concepts in Eng Sci, and it's a lot of research involved as well. So it's kind of a more rigorous approach to learning. And in terms of hobbies, I like playing badminton. I play badminton like twice a week. So, and I like drawing, and I like art and creativity, which is, I think, actually really important for my program. So it's nice to meet y'all, and I look forward to speaking.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And moving on, we can maybe talk a little bit about why you both chose the programs that you did and how you sort of got there.
Yeah, so honestly, I chose it because of the money. I knew that like computer science is, if you get in there, like if you do well, it's a stable job, good income. Yeah, it's basically the main reason. But also like it really, I guess I was first introduced to computer science back in high school, where I took my first course, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Yeah, like I can do this for work and stuff. But I guess like my interest really picked up like after I applied to university. So I actually started like attending hackathons, and I think that's where I started learning new skills and really like opened my eyes to a field and like applying my skills directly, which is pretty cool. Yeah, but yeah, that's basically why. Main reason was money.
Yeah, I mean, like along that, I also chose mine because of the money, but it's also because of like the growth opportunities. I've never I hadn't done research prior to coming into university, and I was like, that would be really cool to try out. And so it's kind of I wanted to push myself a little bit, and I thought that there would be a lot of room for growth in the program. So I chose to do that and kind of challenge myself and see where I can kind of take it. There's a lot of software opportunities available in EngSci, so a lot of us actually steer towards the software side of things. Robotics is actually very software heavy. So yeah, the main reason I chose it, I think, would be the growth opportunities that it provided. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. And I think that definitely gives some of the members here a bit more confidence when they're choosing based on financial means, or I guess other passion-based means as well. So thank you for sharing there. And along those lines, why did you choose your school specifically out of the many that might offer these sorts of programs?
Yeah, so in terms of applying schools, I applied to I didn't only apply to Waterloo, of course. I applied to backup schools and a range of schools. But the reason why I chose Waterloo was probably because of its I guess it's known as, it has a really good co-op program, a good computer science program, probably one of the best in Canada. So I guess that's the reason why. I feel also my parents, not directly, but they would indirectly hint at the fact that they would be very happy if I went to Waterloo as well. So yeah, that's why I chose Waterloo.
Yeah, so I picked U of T because, well, first of all, engineering science is only offered at U of T, so it's not there's many options. But EngSci is actually a consortium, so basically there's just different EngSci programs across the world, and U of T is the only one in Canada that has an EngSci. I also kind of my family lives here, so I wanted to kind of stay close to home throughout my university time. So it was kind of convenient in terms of location, but also in terms of program. Yeah, and U of T is also I think one of the best schools in the country for engineering. So I think that also kind of motivated me to choose U of T for that.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, I'd like to ask if you can walk us through maybe just a day in your average school life.
Yeah, so okay, it's not that interesting, but I'll start with, I wake up around 6 to 8-ish in the morning, depending on the day. Usually I wake up pretty early because of I do part-time in the mornings, so before classes start. Then after that, I would go to class and then come back and do some studying. And sometimes I would have volleyball intramurals that I play at, or if I just want to go for open gym, I would play there. And also I'm in some clubs such as computer science club and women in CS club. So sometimes they have offer events that I would go to as well. Other than that, I would come back home. Lots of studying, just study. And then I would sleep around 10 to 12, depending on how tired I am. And I think right now, in terms of my day right now, it's kind of pretty chill because I'm taking 4 courses at the moment. But last year and first year, I kind of crammed myself a bit too much. The first month that I went to Waterloo, first year, first month, I decided to do an internship at the same time as school, which I do not suggest. Please do not do that. It's not smart. But that was pretty hectic. My sleep schedule was messed up, and it wasn't really good. And then at the same time I decided to do this 6-month project, mentoring project. Basically I was a mentee in this program for 6 months, so I had to manage that as well. And yeah, right, right now it's pretty chill. Everything's I think I'm handling everything much better now. So yeah, if for some people that's their life, they like that type of life, but also it's good to take breaks. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, so For me, classes typically start from 9 to 11, like a.m. depending on the day. And they usually end from 6 to 7. So you could have like classes from 9 to 6 or 9 to 5, and then, or 11 to 6. So it just depends on the weekday. I have 6 classes. So the average, like the standard NSI course load is 6 classes per year. So you get 6 courses, unless you do robo when they overload you in 3rd year for some reason, but it's okay. We'll be fine. But yeah, so it's 6 classes. Those are like the typical class hours. Those include like things like labs, tutorials, which are like times when you like get to do practice. It's not just like straight lectures and like learning material. You actually get time to digest it throughout the day. That's actually scheduled into your schedule, which I find is really nice. It helps keep you kind of regulated. And sometimes like percentages or marks are associated with attendance. So like it's basically free marks for that. And my commute is usually 40 minutes in the morning. So like I live 40 minutes away from campus and I take the TTC and I walk. So it's kind of a nice commute, especially like if it's an early class, because like now the sun is rising at like 7:40 in the morning. So like you're walking and then there's like sun in the sky. So I find it like kind of relaxing in the morning to have that. I'm currently VP Finance for EngSci Club, which is a discipline club. So at U of T, basically every engineering has a discipline club. So I manage the finances for EngSci. And that is kind of like another commitment, as Jenna was saying, like it's another additive commitment onto your schedule. But I find it really nice because the EngSci community is pretty tight, it's pretty strong. So working with like, I worked with orientation over the summer. So I actually oriented the incoming class of EngSci's, and it basically like just kind of like meeting all of the people and stuff. It gives you like a good sense of community and it helps you make connections. So the role is intensive, but it's not tiresome because of that. So I find that really fun. And yeah, and then I get home at like 8-ish p.m. and you study. And then, or sometimes you can go to the gym and like play badminton. Hint, hint. But there's definitely time for you to do extracurriculars. There's a lot of people who are in design teams, and there's a lot of design teams available at U of T. So, or clubs. Dance club was something that I really enjoyed, so I would recommend doing that. And then, yeah, I usually go to bed about like 11-ish, 12 at night. And get your sleep, guys. Get your sleep.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for your insights, recommendations, and all these commitments and clubs, as well as your warnings as well going into first year. Definitely take those to heart. So moving on, we can talk a bit about your co-op experiences. How did those go, and maybe some of the difficulties that you've seen on the way?
So for Waterloo and our co-op program, there's this website called Waterloo Works. So that's usually where everyone applies for co-op, and it makes it pretty easy to submit your resumes and cover letters, etc. So I would recommend also like basically making your resume early so you don't have to worry about it during the school year, because like how like many profs say that co-op, it's kind of like an added course to your course load. It's like a whole other course because of how much you have to like dedicate to that. So in terms of like managing time, try to get things done early so you don't have to worry about it during the school year. In terms of my co-op experience, I did, for the first year, I did get a few interviews, but it was pretty nerve-wracking because I guess I'm not really used to being put on the spot. But also, I wish someone told me that like that interviews are kind of like, in a way, they're kind of like exams, because you kind of have to study for them in a way that you have to understand like core principles of like what you're working with in terms of like, I'm saying like computer science specifically, might also like touch on like engineering as well, and like Einstein. But yeah, basically know your stuff before you go into the interview. Sometimes I would go into the interview without really like reviewing like the projects that I put on the resume or just like my knowledge, and I just felt really embarrassed at the moment whenever I couldn't answer a question. So yeah, that was an emotional like yeah ride, I guess. but in the end, I was able to get a co-op with CRA, and that was a pretty good co-op. It's like in the government, so things are during that time, things were pretty like low and like not much is happening at the moment. But I still learned a lot, like how big companies, I guess, work together since there's so many like teams, how they like come together and yeah, just work together. And I learned a lot of like professional skills from that. One thing is that I worked remotely, so I guess I didn't have the in-person experience, but we did have some team building activities like near where I live. So there was this one time we went rock climbing, which was pretty fun. But yeah, all in all, it was like a good experience. And yeah, I'm looking forward to work with TD this winter, where it will be actually in person. So that'd be another experience.
Yeah, so co-op at U of T works a little bit differently than Waterloo. We have something called a professional experience year, which students usually do after their third year. So basically it's like a 14 to 16 month work term straight instead of like divided, I think is how it works at Waterloo. So for us, it's like one kind of big chunk, and you can do pre-co-op in the summer between your second and third year. I did, however, work at the university this summer. I did web development for the Division of Engineering Science. So I actually like developed we have an orientation blog for the incoming students. So a lot of HTML, a lot of CSS, mainly front end, but there was some back end coding happening as well. So yeah, and for that, the interview is actually kind of similar to what Jenna was saying. You have to know like a little bit of the core principles of what kind of you're being asked to do. And sometimes they'll give you like a take home test, or like they'll ask you questions and you're going to have to like code for them and show them that you're able to do that kind of work. Yeah, but I think a really big thing is like staying true to yourself and being really genuine. I think a lot of the reason why employers hire is because they kind of want you for you and your skills, not just your skills. So personality is a really big part of it. And U of T actually values being like really well-rounded. So this is going to touch on like applications and stuff. Having extracurriculars and talking about those and being really focused on those is actually just as important as your grades are. So yeah. And so in terms of working with the university, it was a great experience. It allowed me to see like kind of how the internal organization works there, and like kind of like seeing the back end of everything. And it was really, really like an awesome experience. And it allowed me to kind of get more familiar with web development, which I hadn't done before. I've only just like coded in high school. And this summer, I'm actually planning on maybe doing some research. So there's engineering science specific research at U of T, it's called SROP, and it's a program where you're able to get either domestic or international research positions, and you can go kind of see what research is like and experience that. And if you like it, then maybe you'll do research. So yeah, that's kind of my plan, but we'll see. I might do some industry. Really depends on what'll happen later this year. So yeah.
Great. Thank you both for sharing your experiences here. And moving forward, what advice would you give to some of the high school students or members considering applying to your program specifically, or your school?
In terms of Waterloo CS, there's this application called the AIF that's really important. So yeah, Waterloo looks at your marks, but apart from that, they also care about if you're like well-rounded, just like how what Nor said. So just basically like skills outside of school or any extracurriculars that you have, you would put on there. I would say also keep track of deadlines in terms of like when the AIF is due or any other documents are due. That's important. And try to join clubs or take on leadership experiences, for example. I feel like that would help in terms of your application, but also like it's also like good to like get in there, like see what your school has to offer and like explore your interests and stuff. It's just like also fun as well. Other than that, in terms of like I guess marks, you would have to focus on your, okay, this might be different for different provinces, but I think for Ontario, you have to, it's top 6, I believe, for school marks. Yes, I think so. So that just like I guess focus on your top 6 courses that includes your advanced functions and calculus and English. Those are the required courses for Waterloo CS. But yeah, and then as a general rule, also apply to like backup schools. Like don't apply to like only one school that you want, like just in case, have backup schools as well. Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of NSI, I would definitely say focus on your extracurricular activities and your there's this thing that you do which is called your personal profile. So when you're applying to NSI, it's basically like a timed evaluation, and basically they throw kind of questions at you that involve thinking. And these are questions that don't necessarily have a definitive answer, but the way that you process the question and the way that you consider the outcomes and what needs to be done or what could be done, the way you explain that is what they're kind of looking at. So it's basically just trying to see how you think almost. So it's not stressful at all. You can't really prepare for it actually. But yeah, so just be ready to like write some stuff about yourself. But in terms of high school academics, I would say focus on, again, like your top 6. U of T takes, I think the average that they consider for NSI is English, advanced functions, calculus and vectors, chemistry, physics, and whatever like elective. I think it's like the same for a lot of STEM programs, but yeah, just make sure that your average is okay in those areas. And yeah, you'll talk a lot about your extracurriculars, and they have like a whole section in the application where like they give you like a lot of space to write about those. So they weigh those really heavily because like a big part that they're considering is kind of how you're going to be able to manage the workload as well as maintain like a work-life balance. So you should be able to kind of like manage the two. So they want to see that when you're applying. I would also say apply to backup schools. Like I applied to, I think it was TMU. It's TMU now, right? Yes, I hope so. I think so. Because I just wanted to stay in the Toronto area. But yeah, so I would say apply to backup schools just like in case. But if like you have a passion for NSI, I think it'll show through your student profile. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation in the application process. Now we'll go into our final sort of prepared question, which is a bit more personal. Just what advice would you give to your grade 12 self before applying?
For me, this might be kind of a weird answer, but I would say I would tell myself to learn to cook because I don't like I am living the consequences of not learning how to cook early. And like right now I'm like cooking for myself, and I've set the stove on fire, and I've melted things that shouldn't have melted. So yeah, that's the advice that I would give to my grade 12 self.
I have a couple, but I think like the obvious one would be not to stress too much. Like I know this is a really stressful time for like everyone, and like I was really, really stressed like around this time. Just because like I really wanted to get into NSI. So I was like kind of anxious about that. But like I think it's really important to realize that like your road to wherever you want to be is not that linear. Like I know in high school you think it's just like straight to, you do this and then you do that and then that's how it's going to go. But sometimes the process is actually more fun than getting there. So I think not stressing too much about that would be something that I definitely needed to do. Another thing would be go to campus before the first day of class. Because U of T is really big. And like there's most of our classes are kind of cornered in one section. It's like kind of the engineering campus, but getting there is fine, but it's kind of like a little bit of a maze, and sometimes buildings are structured questionably. So it's kind of hard to find your classes if you don't know. Like you'll be fine, but it'll help ease your first day anxiousness if you're able to kind of explore campus beforehand.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for that, I guess, personal and also academic focused advice. Definitely learn how to cook. That'll be very important as you're living on your own. Okay, so that's all the sort of general questions that we've prepared for today. We'll move into sort of maybe a more open Q&A, though those on the live stream, or I guess those watching the recordings, may not have as good of an access to ask live questions. So to fill in a little bit, we'll ask some of the questions that maybe common members might have or common students might have. So to start us off, just a general question. I think something we didn't touch on yet was the topic of scholarships. So maybe if you guys could give some insight into some of the scholarships that you applied to and some that maybe students should look out for.
So back in high school, so I went to Colonel Bai, and they provided like a lot of scholarships onto like this one PDF for everyone to view. Personally, I tried to apply to smaller scholarships that many people, like some people won't really look at, I guess, to like get the to help with that. But I didn't I actually didn't really get anything out of that, unfortunately. I think the only scholarship that I did get was like when I applied to Waterloo, there's like a direct scholarship that you get if you surpass a certain mark, I believe, in terms of average, your top 6 average. So other than that, I didn't really have that much success in finding scholarships, unfortunately.
Yeah, so in my case, I went to Lawrence Park Collegiate. It's in like uptown Toronto. And we had like small scholarships associated with awards. And these were like academic. Sometimes they were like sports related. Sometimes they were like personality related. So I got like a couple, but they weren't that big out of high school. And then there's the entrance scholarships that are mark based when you like get into U of T. So there was that as well. But there's also scholarships that are based off of your actual application, which is what I was mentioning before, like the writing component. So like your extracurriculars, they look at how you kind of wrote that and how you presented yourself. And then there are like scholarships associated with that kind of thing as well for NSci. There's also this thing called the engineering e-portfolio. So every year you kind of fill out a list of like your things you kind of did over the year, over the past couple of years, and you write about yourself. And that kind of submits you to a whole bunch of scholarships that U of T has. So it's like a whole big list, and you just fill out one portfolio and they kind of just consider you for all of them. And then you can like get some of those. In my case, I got an entrance scholarship based on marks and one based on writing, but I didn't get anything from the e-portfolio, unfortunately. But there's a lot of scholarships, so you should definitely not discount the importance of that. There's also financial aid, I believe, that is directly associated with the university. So you're automatically considered for that, I think, when you apply / when you re-register every year. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And I guess success or fail, thanks for sharing your experiences anyway. And we'll definitely take or keep an eye out for those. Moving on, I guess for maybe something students can look forward to, what are some of your favorite classes that you guys have taken so far?
That's a good question. In terms of classes, I feel like I wouldn't say math because it's so much harder than high school. But I think in terms of the CS courses, they're pretty interesting. They're like, I feel like it does require, like, it's pretty challenging in terms of you need to like think in different ways and like really like, yeah, analyze a problem and everything. But I feel like the challenge is also like fun. It's like try to see like how far I can go with this, and yeah, just like challenging. But some other courses I really enjoyed outside of the required courses is psych. I feel like psychology was pretty interesting, learning how people think. And yeah, I would say that's my favorite course so far.
In my case, so in first year, we didn't have any electives. So it was all preset. And right now, actually, it's still all preset. My first elective happens in the winter, so I haven't really experienced anything out of the ordinary, like out of the stream of NSI. But I would say, so we have this course called Praxis, and it's kind of confusing to people when they haven't heard about it. But it's basically an engineering design course, and it teaches you a lot about how like the engineering process works and how the design process works. And it's actually really, really important if like you want to go into actual project management or engineering, because those are the skills that you're going to need to exercise. And I found it kind of a nice break because, you know, you have like 5 classes of straight math, and then you have like one that is like design. So like it's a little bit of a break. But I enjoyed calculus. It was a lot harder than high school calculus, as Jenna mentioned. A lot of proofs were happening, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. It kind of got me to think in a little bit of a different way than I was used to, which is like, you know, in high school, you're like, oh, remember the formula, remember the process, do the thing. But now you actually have to like think about it, like actually like process that information. So I thought that was interesting. It gives you some kind of good life skills, in my opinion. But right now, my favorite course would have to be my digital systems and circuits course, which is a course where we kind of explore computer logic, like binary logic. And you like code in assembly and Verilog and all of those very beautiful coding languages that everyone loves to code in. But I think it's interesting. I really like looking at the kind of hardware of a computer and kind of seeing how that relates to the circuit. So I think that would be my favorite course right now.
Great. Both of you listed some pretty interesting courses. Looks like students should look out for math, but yeah, sounds very interesting. Moving forward, I think another worry that students often have outside of school is the housing situation, looking for a good place to live if they're moving in. So I know Nor, you already live there, but yeah, do you guys have any suggestions when it comes to res or living off campus or anything like that?
Yeah, for Waterloo, first years they get housing on campus, like they are prioritized, so you'll definitely have housing. But in terms of second year and after that, it's like up to you. So right now I'm living off campus, and one good advice, I guess, is to, I mean, it's a little bit obvious, but also like just to start early in terms of finding housing. I feel like a lot of people like wait till the end, and then there's like no housing left, and then people are like, I remember like last year was really bad. Like when people were trying to find housing, like people were just worried that they would have to like live in cardboard boxes outside because they couldn't find any housing. So yeah, definitely start early. Like I think when I was trying to find housing for this year, so starting September, like I think I found it back in December, like last year. So like yeah, basically start early in terms of finding housing so that you can get it. But yeah, there's also like lots of websites for you to look up on, and there's like a lot of students like say like, oh, we're subletting, and like yeah, just look out for those.
Yeah, in terms of U of T, so in terms of engineering, we actually get kind of our own little, I would say our own little kind of dorm situation, but that just basically means that we're not like prioritized for all the other dorms that like the rest of UT gets. So we get our own little thing. But I think there's a deadline for first years where like if you apply before that, you're basically guaranteed housing. So if you want to live like on campus, as in like near campus on res, then if you like do it before then, you'll go to basically one of the 3 major, like I would say Eng residences. They're not really Eng, but like they're mostly Eng. And yeah, so you can also apply to like the other U of T residences, and like you might get into those, but it's kind of a tricky situation because downtown Toronto is a pretty expensive place to live, to be honest. So if you want to live on your own in first year, like separate from like a dorm situation, it like you'll find places, but again, cost might be a factor. So try to find maybe roommates or like ways to kind of get around that. And yeah, definitely start early because the housing situation, like there's a lot of people at U of T. So they're all going to be looking for housing like at the same time. So start early to like avoid that happening. But yeah, like as I said, I don't live too far away from campus, so I've just basically been living at home. And if you're gonna commute, then one thing I would say is like, please plan more than you need, because if you leave on time the day of like a midterm, you might not get there. So just like plan ahead of time if you're gonna commute, because so far, honestly, and this is probably just me, but like every time I have a midterm or like an exam or something, the TTC likes to like stop. So I have to suffer a little. So yeah, but that's what I got.
Great. Thank you so much for that advice. Definitely prepare ahead of time. And I think with increasing people going to both of these very popular universities, some very good advice to take in mind. So I think the two of you touched a bit on this next question, but if you guys could dive a bit deeper, do you have any plans for after graduation? And did you take these into account while you were applying?
I have not thought that far yet. I guess like right now I'm just trying to explore the field, like what I want to get into. I know that Nora said she wants to get into robotics. I'm not sure yet at all. Like I've only explored web development as of now. So yeah, just exploring. Not sure what after graduation would take me. But yeah, I guess I'm just going along with the ride right now.
I think for me, like when I originally applied to NSci, my plan was to do the MI like specialization, which is not that different from robotics. But like I came in with like the idea of like software, like engineering, web dev, that kind of thing. And I kind of found myself really liking the hardware parts of computers, and just like in general, just like hardware as well. So I didn't kind of want to restrict myself to software. Um, in terms of like what I want to do afterwards, I'm hoping that my PUI year will help with that. But right now, I think honestly, just working in some sort of like software setting would be kind of nice. Maybe some like robotics engineering, something like that would be interesting. But I'm planning on getting like, you know, your PEng so that you can become a licensed engineer in Canada. And yeah, I think in general, coming in with like a fixed mindset kind of limits you a little bit, because like you're not able to explore different things. As I said, I wanted to try research, which is like not something I ever thought I would ever do, like ever. Um, so yeah, like maybe I'll just like love research. And then I don't know, you can like do research or like go to get a postdoc or something, and then like you can become a prof, or like there's lots of like areas that are associated with engineering. And I think that's also one reason why I chose it, because of like the diversity of things that you can do with the degree. So yeah.
Perfect. I think that's some great advice for incoming students who might be worrying a bit about their future beyond undergraduate. So thank you for that. And I think we can move into maybe some more specific questions. So I guess for Jenna, you mentioned that you work part-time as well as are studying currently. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that and what the experience is like and any recommendations.
Yeah, so right now I'm part-time with CRA, so I work 15 hours a week, so 3 hours every day. Usually it'd be in the mornings from like 7 to 10-ish, but there are certain days where I work in the afternoons as well. Right now, I guess like work has been pretty low in terms of like there's not much happening. We're like in between, like we just finished a project, so we're kind of like just starting another project, so it's not much is happening right now. But yeah, sometimes once a week I have a team meeting, so I would go to that. And yeah, it's just for now, just oh yeah, I should maybe I should also talk about like what I'm doing. In terms of like what I'm doing, it's basically yeah, like software. Working with mostly like API, kind of like middleware integration type of things. So I usually right now I'm working with, I don't know if you're familiar with like SAP software, just like building and testing APIs using that software. But yeah, so that's how like a week for part-time. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for that detailed explanation. And turning it over to Noor, I think you talked a little bit about SROP, so maybe you can dive a little bit deeper into what that is, whether or not students need to apply, and how they can sort of get involved there.
Yeah, so SROP is kind of like a database of engineering opportunities slash slight co-op opportunities. It's separate from your PEY, but it provides like a gateway for EngSci's to kind of try research, and you can apply to it after your first year, or like at the end of your first year. And basically there's kind of sections. So you have like SROP Global, where you have partnerships with universities in Singapore and Thailand, just different universities. And you can actually go and do research at those universities with those institutions in their departments, and certain like, you can do robo research, you could do MI research, you could do energy systems research, which is really big right now with sustainability and everything. So there's that if you'd like to travel, which is also really awesome for just like personal development and growth. But there's domestic options as well. Like at the university itself, you can work with a professor in their labs. So it's a really, I think, good program for students who aren't really sure what they want to do and haven't really experienced areas of research, and would just kind of like to see what it's like to be a researcher or to help out in a lab or to have that kind of job. So I think it's pretty awesome. I know a few people who did the international co-ops. Unfortunately, this year we couldn't actually, go to those places because of the pandemic. So they did asynchronous opportunities, but it still stands. It's an awesome learning opportunity, and yeah, it's basically just like a portal, and you go and you apply, and you get processed by the division, and they select certain people for the opportunities. So you will get emails about it throughout the year. So don't stress. You'll get emails from the division, and it'll be like SROP, and then they'll like tell you how to do things. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. That sounds very interesting, and I think it could be very helpful for a lot of incoming students as well. And to follow up a bit more on your role, could you explain maybe a bit about what a design team is and sort of how that works?
Yeah, of course. A design team, it's kind of like a club. I like to call it a club with more commitment, but basically what it is a design team focuses on kind of engineering something or creating something, like a viable product. This doesn't have to be physical, but usually it's physical. You could do software design teams as well, but basically there's like divisions of a design team. You might have like a technical division. You might have like, for example, we have one design team called UTAP, which is the aerospace team at U of T. And like they have rocketry divisions where you like focus on like, how building a rocket works. So it's kind of just like different sections of a club, and you join that, and then you start working on that area, and all these sections kind of come together to produce one viable product, or like a couple. So there's different design teams for different interests. You've got a Formula One race team, you've got a rocketry team, like aerospace, if you want to build satellites and launch them in the air, that's pretty cool. You've got human powered design teams, so like creating vehicles that are human powered. I actually think we built was it a helicopter, and it was like powered by a guy riding a bike. Anyway, it was really cool. But so there's different areas. There's also like machine intelligence design teams, and design teams that focus on developing like AI software and things like that, and robotics. And so it's kind of just like a way for you to explore applications of what you're studying. I actually think design teams are super useful to join if you're kind of learning stuff in class. You're like, why would I ever need to apply this ever? And then you'll like go, and then you'll be like, oh, I actually need to do this. So it's, I think, a good way to integrate what you're learning in class with like real life applications. And it kind of preps you to be in the workforce if you want to work in actual like engineering. There's also more holistic sides of design teams, which I think is pretty cool. Like design teams usually have a business team, they have a finance team, marketing. So it's not like engineering is all like, oh, let's put circuits together and like build things, but there's a lot of holistic aspects to it too that are like separated. And so, yeah, if you don't want to like engage in the direct creation, you can engage in the management, and you can do project management, which is also like super cool. So yeah, design teams are great. They do require a little bit of time commitment. So in my personal experience, I would not recommend joining more than one design team during first semester, because you will be required to sometimes do readings, right? Like no one comes into university just knowing how to build a rocket, unless you do. If you do, you do. But if you don't, then you're going to have to learn. And a lot of that is just kind of like personal initiative, which you might not necessarily have time for between like the social adjustment, the academic adjustment, like just everything in general, at least during first semester. So I would say honestly, wait a little bit, and then join them. And they accept new people all the time. Like you can join during the start of second semester, midway second semester, like at the start of second, whatever you want. But just make sure that you're taking into account that it will take a little bit of time from your academics / personal life. But honestly, it's fun. So it can be like a hobby, you know.
Yeah, thank you so much. Sounds like it'd be very fun to join. And thanks for that advice near the end there as well. And to turn it back to Jenna, do you have any recommendations for any clubs at Waterloo? Just in general.
I'm not a very good person to ask about this. I feel like first year I was very lost in terms of where to find all the clubs. I didn't know there's a club fair, and I didn't know where to basically where to find the clubs. There was like there's this small club thing that was running, but there were only like 8 clubs that like showed up in that one. So obviously I was confused in first year. And then in terms of second year, like before this semester started, I started actually like looking into clubs and such, but like some of them you need to register beforehand, and I missed like all the registration dates. So now I'm currently, yeah, I'm just doing the 2 clubs that I mentioned before, which is CSC, which is Computer Science Club. It's usually a club that all computer science students join, and then there's WIX, so Women in CS. But yeah, I also recently actually just joined film club, but I haven't done anything with that yet. But yeah, I recommend figuring out where the clubs, like figure out when club fair is and where to find the clubs before coming to Waterloo. That would be good advice.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those experiences. Definitely figure those out for incoming students, and yeah, get involved. Sounds very nice. So to close off this panel with one final question, just in general, what do you think are some technologies, so languages, software, all that every student interested in tech should know, or at least be interested in?
So one big one I feel like a lot of people would tell you would be learn Python. This is usually because of interview questions, like technical questions. Usually people code in Python because like everything is the syntax is much easier, and also like your code is much shorter, so you can code a lot in just a few lines of code, and it just makes things easier as well. In terms of like certain tools and technologies, let's say if you want to learn web development, I think if you want to learn front end, for example, like one good framework would be React. So I feel like that's usually what people use for front end, but there's also Vue, and there's another one I can't remember at the top of my head. But yeah, I feel like React is used the most. Learn if you do front end, then HTML, CSS, that's important, JavaScript as well. And then back end would be like Python is usually the go-to. But yeah, that's from my personal experience. And then I'll pass it on to Nor.
Yeah, so like it's kind of hard to say for engineering, because there's like fundamental languages that are very like low level, that you will learn. Like during your first 2 years of Eng Sci, you'll learn Python, C, Verilog, and assembly. And so you will learn those. You don't have to know those coming in. I would say knowing Python coming in is really useful. Just because, again, Python is like really nice because it's high level. So the syntax is really kind to you. And it helps you understand a lot of algorithms. But one thing that I would also recommend is look into learning a little bit of C if you have any free time. Just because C is really good, just syntactually at showing like data structures. So things that you'll be learning about like theoretically are really nicely present in C, at least in like a rigorous way throughout the code. So I think one thing about Python is it takes away a little bit of that. So it might be harder to understand through that, but I would say C is a really good one. Don't learn Verilog before coming. You would save that for when you get here. But yeah, I would say honestly, Python and C. Java gets a lot of hate, in my opinion. I love Java, but like it gets a lot of hate. So actually did Java in high school. So I don't know if like that's what they still do now. But yeah, I would say honestly, like just like the two recommendations, Python and C would be whatever. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. And yeah, I definitely recommend incoming students do check those out if you haven't already, and make sure you get familiar with, I guess, Python especially, but also C and some of those other languages. So yeah, thank you so much to both the panelists for answering all these tough questions, hopefully easy questions as well. And it looks like we've reached just the end of our time. So once again, I'd like to invite all of you and those watching the recording in the future to join me in thanking these panelists for taking the time out of their day and sharing their experiences. So yeah, we can do another round of virtual applause. Thank you so much. And on that note, if you have any other burning questions that might pop up as you're reflecting upon all of these answers, feel free to let us know, send us a message within our community server. I'm sure there are many that would be happy to help, including hopefully our two panelists that might stick around in the server as well. I'm sure they'll be happy to answer some of your questions as well. And if you want even more detail, PTC has just released their university guides, so that so you can also check that announcement out within our community server. If you're interested in more events like this, you can register to PTC Plus, our membership program. It's completely free, and we run monthly events like these to help all of you out. So yeah, I think that's about it. I hope you all have a great rest of the night / weekend, and we hope to see you again at future PTC events. Thank you.
Thank you for